Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks. The links for all of those things are in the description below, so do not miss out on any of the extra college football content. Well, for our game of the week, it is a no-brainer. We are going to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party as number 8 Georgia will take on number 6 Florida in Jacksonville in what should be one of the better Georgia-Florida games in recent memory. And like we've done all season long, we're going to break down the offensive and defensive sides of the ball for both of these teams, break down the keys for the game, and then share, of course, who's going to win this crucial matchup, not just for the SEC, but also for the college football playoff. So a little bit of history in this big rivalry game that, of course, is taking place in Jacksonville, much like it has been for many, many years, and much like it will continue to be. Now they have signed a contract extension to, I believe, 2025. But Georgia now leads the series 52-43-2 over the Gators. So they have a 9-game lead over Florida. They've won the past 2 games, including a 36-17 victory last year over the Gators, a game that they actually trailed 14-13 in the third quarter before pulling away late, of course, 36-17. They blew them out 2 years ago, and that was Florida was in a pretty bad state at that point, still being led, of course, by Jim McElwain. Now, the Bulldogs and the Gators have, it should be noted, split the last 10 meetings, but they have not had a one-possession game. This game between Georgia and Florida has not been decided by one possession since 2013. That was a 23-20 Georgia victory. So keep in mind, guys, it's been a long time, 6 years, since we've actually had a close and really exciting Georgia-Florida game. Last year was the first time that these two squads met as top 10 teams. First time they met since 2008. First time since 2008 they met as top 10 teams. Back in 2008, number 5 Florida beat then number 8 Georgia 49-10. Of course, Georgia got their revenge as a top 10 team last year. And now we're set up for another top 10 showdown, number 8 versus number 6. And as we mentioned, the winner of this game more than likely going to win the SEC East and keep their college football playoff hopes alive, while the loser of this game would have 2 losses on the season. And not only would their title hopes be over, but their college football playoff hopes would go down with them. So let's take a look at the offense. Let's take a look at the offenses for Georgia and for Florida. Now, we'll start with Georgia, guys, and I'm telling you, I have not been impressed at all by Georgia's offense the past 2 games. The past 2 times we've seen Georgia, they lost to South Carolina in double overtime and beat Kentucky 21-0. But it should be noted that in that Kentucky win, Jake Fromm only had 35 passing yards. Now, yes, DeAndre Swift played out of his mind, had over 170 yards, 179 yards, averaging 8.5 yards per carry in that game against Kentucky. But the play calling was very, very conservative. Was not looking good. They didn't score a touchdown until over halfway through the third quarter in that game against the Wildcats. That type of play calling and that type of offensive performance will not fly against this Florida defense. It's just not. So hopefully Kirby Smart and his staff have reevaluated, have come up with a solid game plan to exploit Florida's defense. They've had a week off, and so has Florida. So each team coming off a bye week hopefully has figured some things out in preparation for arguably the biggest game of the year for both of these squads. Jake Fromm has to step it up. Fact of the matter. He's 37 for 63, 330 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions in those previous 2 games that we mentioned. Didn't throw a touchdown against Kentucky, threw 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions against South Carolina, under 50% of his passes. Not good. Not good. Now, DeAndre Swift is going to be the key in this game for Georgia. That is the key offensively. I have total faith in Jake Fromm. I still, despite the struggles, I still think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. He's accurate most of the time. Wasn't against South Carolina, but he is accurate. He is precise. He is a good quarterback. They've got to get the pass game going. Swift has played phenomenal against Kentucky, played well against South Carolina, but he can't do it all by himself against Florida. The Georgia offense is extremely balanced, 234 passing yards per game and 236 rushing yards per game. So about as even as you can get there. So if Florida takes away the run, they're still capable of winning through the air. If they take away the pass, they're still capable of winning on the ground. And we'll touch on that in a second. But you go over on the opposite side, you're looking at a Florida team that maybe the best thing to happen to them was switching quarterbacks. You hate to say that it's great to see a player go down injured. You never want to see anybody do that. But I don't know if Dan Mullen would have ever pulled the plug on Felipe Franks had he not gone down with an injury against Kentucky. But since then, Kyle Trask has played extremely well. He's fresh off a career-high 4-touchdown performance in that 11-point road victory over South Carolina. He has over 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So he takes extremely good care of the football with this Gators offense. They're averaging 277 passing yards per game and 142 rushing yards per game. And as we have seen in games against Auburn, games against South Carolina, Florida is capable at any moment of busting out a huge run. 75 yards, 80 yards. They are capable of finding a seam, finding a hole created by their offensive line and getting a huge gain on the ground. So Georgia has to be cautious of that. But Kyle Trask has been playing extremely well. No doubt an upgrade at the quarterback position for the Florida Gators. How will he fare against one of the more tough defenses he's faced off against this season? But keep in mind, guys, one thing to keep of note, while Georgia, how elite they are defensively, Trask has already faced off against Auburn and LSU. He beat Auburn, and against LSU, they mustered 28 points, lost 42-28 in Death Valley at night. He has experienced elite defenses. He has experienced hostile environments. This one at a neutral site. It's not in Athens. It's at a neutral site. And I would say that Auburn or LSU's defense might be slightly better than Georgia when it comes to that. So Kyle Trask, you can't make an excuse saying that they're going to struggle because he's going to be rattled, because he has been thrown in to difficult game situations and thrived in them. Now defensively, if you look at the stats, like we've mentioned, Georgia is statistically better than Florida. Statistically, Georgia is better. They're allowing just 10.6 points per game and allowing 85.7 rushing yards per game. Remember that number, because that's going to be key. I mentioned that DeAndre Swift can't do it all by himself on Georgia's offensive side of the ball, but Kyle Trask can't do it all by himself for Florida on the offensive side of the ball. So remember that number there, that if Florida can't run against Georgia, it could be a long day offensively, and the same for Georgia. If they're unable to pass, it could be a long day offensively. So you need to keep an eye on that. One key, though, that kind of caught my eye. Georgia's played 7 games. They've allowed over 250 yards passing in 3 of those games. Take away the Kentucky game. I don't know if Kentucky would have mustered 250 yards had they actually had a quarterback in there. But Linton Bowden was playing quarterback that whole game. He did pretty good running, couldn't get anything going against the pass. So if you take that out of there, half their games they've allowed 250 passing yards or more. One of those was against Murray State. So keep that number in mind too. Can Kyle Trask, who has been lighting up defenses left and right, can he exploit some weaknesses in this Georgia secondary? That's something of note. Florida is only allowing 15.8 points per game. Not bad at all. That's a very good number. More than Georgia, yes, but still a very good number in the rugged SEC. They're allowing 195.4 passing yards per game and 124.1 rushing yards per game. That is another key number because, as you heard us say earlier, Georgia is averaging 236.9 rushing yards per game. Florida is allowing 124.1. Something's got to give there. Will the Gators be able to bottle up Georgia's run game? Will they be able to stop DeAndre Swift? Or is he going to continue to have another big game after game after game like he has had over the course of the season? And they will have to do that if Jake Fromm can't get anything going through the pass game. Another thing to note for the Florida defense is that Todd Grantham loves to pressure the quarterback. He loves the blitz. And Florida's defensive line has been outstanding this year. They are creating pressure left and right, doing a very, very good job of that. they also force turnovers. Not only do they pressure the quarterback extremely well, but Florida has forced 18 turnovers this season. 18. And those all haven't come against really cupcake opponents. A lot of those came against Auburn, South Carolina, Miami. So elite FBS programs, not FCS schools. 18 turnovers this season for the Gators. And you can expect they'll get at least one, maybe more, in this game against Georgia. And that's going to be one of the keys for the game. We're going to break down the keys for Georgia to win, the keys for Florida to win. And we'll start with the Bulldogs here. Their first key is the obvious. Figure out the play calling. If you go look at Twitter or you go look on anywhere social media, people are pretty upset with the way that Kirby Smart has handled the past 2 games against South Carolina and Kentucky. And that's a major cause of concern for me too. After seeing those past 2 games, neither of which I thought were great performances, one ended up being a loss. I didn't agree with many of the play calls. I didn't think they were doing a very good job with it. Have they figured that out? They've had 2 weeks to do it. Have they figured it out going up against a very elite defense in Florida? Have they figured out the play calling, and will they be able to get the passing game going with Jake Fromm? If you pass enough, you can set up the run. If you run enough, you can set up the pass. Will Florida bite on that? That remains to be seen. But Joe Burrow tore them up a couple weeks ago in Death Valley. And while Joe Burrow is in fact better than Jake Fromm can put up similar numbers against this Florida defense. I have no doubt in my mind. Secondly, Georgia has to force Florida to run. Force them to run. We mentioned that stout rushing defense for Georgia. If they take away Kyle Trask, pressure him, keep him in the pocket, because he does have a little dual threat ability, keep him in the pocket, shut down the passing game, I don't think the Michael P. Ryan and the Florida running backs are going to have much success on the ground against Georgia. Not many teams have this season. So they have to force Florida to run by taking away the pass or pressuring Kyle Trask or just making it very difficult in the backfield that Florida has no chance just to run the ball. And then finally, for Georgia, take care of the football. And they have done a very good job of that this season. Georgia has only committed 8 turnovers. Not bad at all. Through 7 games, only 8 turnovers. But we mentioned Florida has forced 18. So what's going to happen here? Will Florida be able to come away with a couple fumbles, a couple interceptions from Jake Fromm? He threw 3 against South Carolina. Or will Georgia do extremely well ball security-wise and force Florida just to actually stop them on down? So get 3 and out. So stop them across the board without forcing turnovers. That's going to be a major storyline to watch in this game. Now the keys for Florida, of course, once again kind of stating the obvious, pressure Jake Fromm. Or at least rattle him in the pocket. Jake Fromm, not as mobile as other quarterbacks we have seen. I don't think he's as mobile as Kyle Trask. So he's more of a pocket passer. We know that. So if Florida can get some pressure on Fromm early and often, they're going to result more to the run game, and Florida will be able to hone in on that specific area offensively. They'll be able to hone in on DeAndre Swift and prevent the run from getting going from Georgia. Rattle Jake Fromm early. He has not thrived well when he's been under pressure. Go watch the South Carolina game. He did not do well under pressure. He did not do well under pressure situations. So Florida needs to do that. They have to contain DeAndre Swift. Have to shut him down. And they have to convert in the red zone. Against LSU, a 14-point loss for Florida, the Gators threw an interception in the red zone and got stuffed on downs from the 2-yard line in the red zone. They convert both of those, it's a tie game. Who knows what could have happened? In a game like this, Florida has to take advantage of every single opportunity they have. Try not to come away with field goals. You need to come in with touchdowns in a game like this. But if you have to, take the field goals. Regardless, Florida has to convert in the red zone. They have to take advantage of the opportunities they are given. If they get a turnover, convert off of it. If they're in the red zone, convert off of it. Short yardage situations, don't stall, get it in the end zone. They have struggled with that at times this season, and against a stout defense like Georgia, I could see it happening again. Dan Mullen had to take the bye week to prepare for this, to be able to get short yardage situations and be able to convert and score on the opportunities they are given. If they're unable to do that, Florida does not win this game. But, as mentioned in our Week 10 prediction video, and as I will say now, I do think Georgia will fall in this game. I do think Florida will beat the Bulldogs. Many will disagree. Many will call me a hater. Many will say I don't know what I'm talking about. And maybe I don't. Maybe Georgia will defeat Florida. But after everything I mentioned, after what I've seen from both teams over the past few weeks, Florida to me looks like the better team. Last year, a worse Florida team going up against a better Georgia team was winning in the third quarter 14-13 before they fell apart. I don't think that happens again. I think Florida has the defense to contain a struggling Georgia offense, and I think Florida, with their newfound offense, with their newfound leader in Kyle Trask, gets the job done down in Jacksonville. I think the Gators win a close one. I think they win the first one-possession game since 2013. But with this win, Florida takes sole possession of the SEC East, keeps their playoff hopes alive, while Georgia will take their second loss of the season. Everything will be ruined for them. SEC title hopes, college football playoff hopes, and a very disappointing 2019 for Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs. Regardless, it will be a phenomenal matchup down in Jacksonville. Two very even teams, two evenly matched teams. But I think Florida comes away with a narrow victory in this one. So guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert. Go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for the weekly newsletter and sign up for the expert picks. The links for all those things are in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.